So today our team will be doing on conflict management and team building presentation, which is done by Cassandra Yeo, Celestine Chiu, Xing Ying, Zhiling, Nicole, and Dominic Tan. So our workshop will cover the topics of conflict management and team building. Trainees will then be able to learn and apply their skills and knowledge through the workshop activities prepared, which include theory lessons in the form of mini lectures, icebreaker, quizzes, and role play. So the rationale of this workshop is conducted with the objective to improve trainees' conflict management skills to better enable them to handle conflict should they encounter it in the future. This is to strengthen the bonds amongst the trainees since they will be required to work together for duties or events in Envoys. So after the workshop, trainees will then be able to explain what conflict is, how it arises, and the impact of the conflict. Trainees will then be able to explain and identify the different types of conflict management styles. The trainees' critical thinking and problem-solving skills will be enhanced as they apply the appropriate resolution style based on the different scenarios they face. This will be done through the role-play activity. Lastly, trainees will then be able to understand the importance and benefits of team building, where team building games are prepared to increase the interaction among the trainees. So our resources available, which would be, we need a budget of $15. The team will be able to obtain workshop materials needed for different activities. Handout will be provided for the trainees so that they can take down notes during the workshop. It will also serve as a useful material for them to take away with after the workshop and should they need to refer it in the future. Venues have been provided by the management to provide a conducive environment for the workshop. The trainers are knowledgeable in the field from receiving proper lectures on conducting a good training workshop. So we conducted a training needs assessment to assess the kind of training needed for the envoys, particularly in the areas of conflict management and team building. Our training needs assessment methods include surveys and interviews. As there is a recruitment for Year 1 envoys, we surveyed the current Year 2 envoys and Year 3 envoys who have the knowledge and experience on envoys' duties and events. This aim of conducting a survey with envoys is to find out how they work and how often they encounter conflicts. It would allow us to customize activities for the workshop as we will have a better understanding on the current problems they are encountering. So conducting a survey would allow the team to effectively identify the knowledge and behavior that need to be emphasized during training. The team can analyze the survey result to plan the workshop according to the learning needs and preference. For example, in the survey, we asked what activities they would like to see during the workshop, and most of them chose role play. From the results we received, we incorporated role play to aid their understanding on different scenarios, which will be shown in the later slides. This will enhance the workshop content so as to deliver a workshop that will better relate to the trainees. The aim of the interview is for the team to gain an in-depth understanding on how conflict arises within envoys, as conducting surveys have some limitations such as lack of details, and it only provides information related to the question asked. So interviews would allow interviewers to ask questions and for easy follow-ups. Through the interview, the team aims to uncover additional details of training needs that were not anticipated by our team. So we can also elaborate more on their answers, which enable us to have a better understanding of our trainees and customize training for them. So according to our survey, BA envoys currently do not have any conflict management training. Hence, it will be very useful for the envoys to undergo a conflict management training for them to learn the ways to conflict resolution. Ranking 1 as least important and 5 as the most important, majority of the responses thinks that conflict handling is important as a management or leadership skill. This shows that they see the importance of conflict management and they would most likely want the Year 1 envoys to have such training to acquire knowledge and skills on conflict management. Moving on, 85% of the envoys experience conflicts in their course of duties while the other 15% have not. Since majority of the envoys have experienced conflict, this conflict management workshop would be very useful for them to learn and apply the ways to resolve conflict. So as for team building, 60% of the envoys do not think that they bonded well with their batchmates. Team building is important for the envoys as they often have to work together to plan and execute events. For them to do so, they should know their batchmate well. Hence, this shows that the workshop should include training on team building. So the conflict in BA envoys arise mainly due to these three reasons. Firstly, planning of events. Secondly, executing events. And lastly, the picking of committee members. We also had the opportunity to interview an BA member who told us about her experience and feedback about other issues faced within BA at various events. Some of it include the following, such as organizing meetings. People are not attending meetings because they are unfamiliar with each other and would rather avoid than to interact with people they do not know. So hierarchy based, where the popular ones in power did not really involve the one who are not as outgoing as them. This was one of the main reasons for selection of leader as well, since the one in authority did not interact with the envoy's member unless specific instructions of event is needed. So, secondly, is the engaging of visitors. There are also instances where envoys were not well prepared enough for Q&A during open house events, and when a problem arises, it's very hard for them to resolve without knowing the proper conflict management resolution. So based on our surveys and interview results, we have analyzed some of the conflict management and team building knowledge, skills, attitudes required in certain occasions for the envoys. So in conclusion, our training needs assessment shows the usefulness of having a conflict management and team building workshop for envoys. And our training needs assessment also allow us to come up with an appropriate and effective training design and lesson plan, which is shown. So moving on to our training design. Our training content for conflict management includes what is conflict, the outcome of conflict, and sources of conflict. It also includes conflict management styles and resolution. So the content for team building includes the importance of benefits of team building. So why we choose to talk about conflict management styles is based on a survey which chose personality clash as the second highest conflict starter, and we chose to talk about the importance of and benefits of team building. Is because miscommunication is the number one reason stated in the survey that starts a conflict. Lack of understanding is related to miscommunication. So from the survey result, personality clashes, 75%, is the second highest conflict starter. Hence, our conflict management workshop will share with the envoys more about their management styles. Through knowing one another's management style of solving conflict, this would reduce the clashes in personality as they would be able to know how to handle conflict when they are faced with one. Miscommunication, which is 90%, is the number one reason why conflict started. The envoys have miscommunication issues due to lack of understanding of one another. Thus, the importance of benefits of team building comes into play. When envoys are more bonded as a team, they will be able to communicate with one another better and eventually reduce the number of miscommunication. So what are the type of workshop activities? You include icebreaker, quizzes, role plays, and games, and a Kahoot quiz, which I mentioned earlier. An icebreaker game, which will be conducted at the start of the training, allow trainees to break away from their small groups and get to know the members in their new groups better through a series of questions. It also engages the students so that they will be comfortable and will not see the workshop as a conventional tutorial or lecture. And the trainees will take a short quiz on conflict management style to find out what style they belong to. By doing so, it will trigger their interest to learn and pay attention to find out more about the different styles during training, as it will be something relatable and applicable to them. It's also important to provide opportunities for trainees to apply like what they have learned and put them into good use. A role play will be conducted after the mini lecture on conflict management so as to allow trainees to apply what they have learned by identifying the most appropriate conflict management methods to use to resolve conflicts in the various scenarios. So the trainees will hence know how to tackle the different types of conflict in real situation as they have experience on how to solve them. Trainees will also be able to learn from one another through the role play presentations too, in terms of their thinking. So by providing immediate and regular feedbacks to the trainees, they will be able to clarify any doubts and it will be helpful in allowing them to understand the content better. So when trainees receive feedback, it will give them a sense of achievement and encourage them to contribute more as they have gained self-confidence and will feel good about themselves in general. So role playing is ranked second, which students want to see in workshop with a percentage of 65%. Through role playing, students will be able to imitate real world scenarios, which and put their creative problem solving skills to a test. So we came up with 5 scenarios for the role play to tackle for the 5 training needs assessment accordingly. So scenario 1, where these are the scenarios for 1 and 2. This is for the scenario for 3 and 4. And lastly, scenario 5. So a team building game, which came out is to build the tallest tower, is conducted to give trainees an opportunity to experience how it's like working in a team, and to achieve a shared goal. In this game, trainees will work together as a team to build the tallest standing tower with only limited resources. This also allow them to understand like how team building can effectively improve communication between team members and cultivate teamwork amongst them. The reason for choosing this team building game is that competitive game is the first choice which students like to see during a workshop with a percentage of 90%. So through team building games, students will be able to work together and get to know one another better. Towards the end of the training, trainees will have to play a fun online quiz Kahoot, whereby they will be given questions on conflict management and team building to test their understanding on the topics. Kahoot will serve as an effective way to recap on the information they have absorbed before leaving the workshop. It helps to facilitate the workshop as trainees will know how well they are doing as they learn and clarify any doubts after doing the quiz. Prizes will be given to the winner as an act of positive reinforcement to acknowledge trainees' enthusiasm and active participation. It also motivates them to participate actively. Moving on to our detailed lesson plan. It consists of the in-depth learning objective which we briefly mentioned earlier, which is targeted at the Year 1 BA Envoy students. Lastly, we'll thank you for listening to our presentation.